What if I told you that we're looking for elk today? But we're not out west, we're here in the east. And we're actually in Pennsylvania. Specifically, we're in northwestern Pennsylvania during the most iconic time of the year here. Fall. Today we're traveling to Benezet, Pennsylvania, in central Pennsylvania, to discover this incredible species. Home to nearly 1,400 individual elks that freely roam across around 3,000 square miles of forest. The colors this time of year are spectacular. And so are the elk that we're about to see. In fact, it's actually rut season, meaning that the males will be more aggressive because it's breeding season. The best part is, this time of year, they do something beautiful called bugling. It's eerie and really cool, so let's hope we can catch that on camera today. On our journey to find one of the most unknown, largest species here in Pennsylvania, the Keystone State. I think I heard an elk bugling. I'm hoping. Did you guys hear that? I really hope you guys can hear that. I think that's at the second viewing station, but that is the animal we're looking for. They're going like crazy tonight. They'll probably come out in the field right here, and I'm really hoping we can get some shots of these really cool, charismatic megafauna. That's elk poop. That's fresh. These are the elk we're looking for, and the ones that belong to the poop that we just saw. Before European settlers came to America, elk had an incredibly vast range across most of the United States, Canada, and even parts of Mexico. This made them, at one point, the most widely distributed deer species in North America, with population estimates of over 10 million individuals. Now, however, populations have dwindled to about 1/10 of that due to overhunting, and eastern populations are all but gone. It's crazy because elk, they were native here in Pennsylvania through around the 1870s, and in the late 1870s, they became extinct in the area, so they were completely gone. And it wasn't until the early 1900s when the Game Commission kind of got an idea in their head around 1912 that we'd like to bring back some of the elk species back in here, that in 1913, they actually bought a herd of like about 50 individuals and brought them from Yellowstone here. And so it was about 50 of those individuals that they released in 1913. And then obviously something important, I guess, historically happened. World Wars happened, and a lot of interest was lost because, you know, priority shifted towards dealing with the wars. And then obviously the wars were done, and the attention shifted back into the elk. So there's not a whole lot of data on that time period. But what there was a shift of interest in, like, hey, we want to have more conservation efforts in place for these elk. And so they began to gather data, and the populations ebbed and flowed through the years, and until now, where we have a much larger population of about 1,400 elk here in Pennsylvania. And it's really a crazy story of conservation, and it is a success story of releasing a species that was once extinct in the area that had an important impact on the ecosystem in the area, and just kind of watching the ecosystem transform back as these amazing, huge herds of these massive charismatic megafauna that you really wouldn't think of when you think of Pennsylvania. I think when people think of Pennsylvania, they definitely don't think of the elk. They probably think of white-tailed deer, maybe some bear. But out west, you think of the massive elk populations. And obviously not here in Pennsylvania, but we do have a pretty healthy population. Really cool to see. Fun fact, the elk actually is called the wapiti. It's the Native American name for the elk. And actually, the elk that we're seeing here today aren't the original elk. Let me explain. First of all, have you ever heard of the moose? Of course you have. Moose are also known in Europe, parts of Europe, as elk. And actually their scientific name, Alsis, literally means elk. And so why then do we call, and they were discovered before, you know, traditional elk like in the United States that we would think of, right? Well, actually, they were discovered after. So why the heck were they considered to be elk? Well, what happened is the people came here, you know, colonists or whatever came here, and they saw this massive, you know, cervid, this huge deer species with a big old rack, didn't probably fully know what they were looking at, and said, guys, look, an elk. And the Native Americans said, no, it's a wapiti. And they were like, wapiti? That's an elk. You uneducated people. And guess who turns out was uneducated? The colonists. Because they came in and confused everybody, because now we call elk, in the United States, we call elk, and instead of calling moose elk. So we have this weird like dichotomy where parts of Europe where they're called moose, they're called elk there. Here we call them moose because it's the Native American Algonquin name for elk, or for the moose, is moose. So we changed it from elk to moose. And instead of calling the wapiti a wapiti, which is, by the way, also, I believe, an Algonquin name, or at least a Native American name for the cervid, we called it the elk. So now everybody's confused. So if you ever ask yourself, what's the importance of these god-awful long scientific names? It's pretty much because of that very reason. Misidentification, and everyone calls something different in a different area. Elk, Exhibit A would be like elk in Europe, or moose, and elk here are wapiti, or elk. It's all very confusing, but just learn your scientific names. Pretty cool here, you can actually see some turkeys just fooling around in the background. But in case you were curious, the scientific name of an elk, or wapiti, is Cervus canadensis. Just in case anybody wanted to take what I was saying to heart. Fun fact, the name wapiti actually means white rump, referring of course to its white butt. And it's actually the second largest species of deer on the planet. They're also a staple American, because they are the loudest of their kind, with the bugle of the male elk being able to be heard up to 5 miles away. Crazy. It's night now, and this is our second spot. There are close to 12 male bull elk here on this hill. A group of bachelors getting ready for bed to kiss the homies goodnight. As you should, by the way. The problem is that it's so dark that the normal mode of my camera is actually having a really hard time focusing. So let's switch to infrared. Whoa! Dude, this is crazy. Look how clear they are. Dude, this is too cool. While other people are struggling to see just about anything out because it's so dark, I can see them so clear here with this infrared camera. I feel like a spy, like James Bond, with this camera. Man, God is good. This is what it's all about. No, not being a creeper on elk. The adventure. Seeking out the unexpected. Discovering the unique. And exploring God's beautiful world. What a great day. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and don't forget, hit that subscribe button as well. And you know what? Hit that notification bell. And remember, keep it real, keep it wild, and I'll see you guys in my next adventures here on Real Wild Adventure.